everyone. Welcome in. We are going to go ahead and get started. Thank you all for taking time to be here today. We are going to be talking about the web of sustainability. This is our part three in a series, so hopefully you've seen some of the previous episodes in this series. If not, you can definitely check them out on our YouTube channel. We have all of our past Beyond the Webinar series uploaded there. And we're going to introduce ourselves right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, I'm Chaz Sumners. I am a edge specialist here at Foundations. I come from a background of special education, taught that in English for over 10 years. And at that same time, I had the good fortune of being able to work in out of school time programs. So I started as just volunteer in high school and worked my way up through the ranks until eventually I was a program director. So I'm very familiar with the concerns about wanting to be able to sustain parts of your program that are really having that high impact for youth. So I'm excited to talk about that.
Hi, everyone. I'm Scarlett Odell. I'm also an education specialist here at Foundations Inc. My background was in social studies. I taught in the K-12 school system in New Jersey for several years, and then transitioned into some nonprofit work with harm reduction, substance prevention use amongst youth, and ran a youth program after school, out of school time program there. And I'm very excited to be here because that is a lot that we see come up with a lot of programs is sustainability and questions around it. And how do you keep going? How do you, keep doing this work when it feels like sometimes you don't know where to turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here. Welcome to our webinar series. We're going to be getting started shortly in just a moment, but before we do, we just want to give you a little bit of background information on Foundations. So I'm going to be posting a few things in the chat for you. So Foundations Inc. is a national educational nonprofit that is located in Mount Laurel, New Jersey. And our mission is to improve the quality of education by building the skills of educators. We work across the school day with after-school programs, schools, districts, and states to create a brighter future for every child every day. If you're interested in learning more about Foundations, you can follow us on all of our social media that we'll put in the chat for you as well. And you may already know us from our signature professional learning experience, the Beyond School Hours Conference, that's held each February. And in 2027, we will be in New Orleans for our 30th anniversary. Very excited about
New Orleans.
and we hope that you will join us there. So I'm going to be posting just a few of those things in the chat for all of you to get access. We have our Foundations website, and then below that we also have, apologies, my mouse is moving very slowly. We have all of our social media links that you can get access to. In addition to that, we also shared the link to our toolkit. So a lot of what we've talked about in the Web of Sustainability, parts one, two, three, and eventually four, are all covered in that toolkit. So you can use that link to go to the full toolkit, which is free for you to access and download.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely free resource for you that walks you through each one of the parts of this process that we're going through our four-part series here, and gives you some really in-depth stuff as well as some templates to use. So highly recommend checking that out for the low cost of free 99.
So let's dive right into it with some of our objectives.
Yeah, let's talk about what we're going to talk about today, right? So, first of all, we've designed these objectives to be very practical, right? Because there's a lot of theory that goes on when it comes to sustainability, but at the end of the day, I want to know what I can do right now or tomorrow, right? So that's what our goal is. So first, we're going to start by identifying the kinds of evidence that help leaders decide what's worth sustaining, right? Because not all evidence is going to be helpful for you in the same way. And so we're going to need different types of evidence in order to really be able to make an informed decision. Then we're going to use impact and expenses, right, to sort one activity into a likely next step, right? So we're going to look at the impact that an activity has, and then we're going to look at how much that costs us, and then figure out what we're going to do. Are we going to sustain it? Are we going to reevaluate it? Are we going to remove it, right? Maybe we have to scale it down. Maybe we have to redesign it, something like that, right? Um, and then after that, we're going to take some time to draft a brief sustainability message, right? Think about it like an elevator pitch, a 30-second message that you could be using with funders, partners, school leaders, families, groups, internal teams, anybody that wants to know what you do and how you do it. That is the message that you're going to use. And then finally, we're going to end with just choosing one realistic data action that you can start doing today, right? And our whole through line is at the bottom of the slide there, right? We're going to choose one activity from your own program that's going to travel with us through all of the activities that we do, just to keep us grounded and keep the session concrete. So let's jump in. So before we use data to make any decisions, we have to name a few norms for using evidence well, right? Because we can have all the data in the world, but if we're not using it intentionally and consistently, that's an issue, right? First thing that we need to think about is protecting student and family privacy. A lot of this data is going to have identifiable information in it. So before we roll it out to anybody, we need to make sure that we're redacting those things so that students and families, privacy are protected. Then we're going to look to aggregate data when individual data isn't needed. So it's a big fancy way of saying if we don't have the one piece of data that we really think that we need, we can take a number of other smaller data points and bring them together in order to give us the same amount of information, right? We're also going to avoid deficit language. And that's deficit language about our youth, about our families, about our schools, about our communities, right? It's not students aren't doing this, families aren't blah blah blah, right? It's not about blaming anybody. We can describe what barriers we have, and what our access issues are and what our potential outcomes could be without blaming somebody else.
Exactly.
Mhm. And we want to pair numbers with voice, right? Numbers at the bottom there, right? Numbers show us what's happening, right? The data is giving us the actual concrete evidence for what's happening, but we don't know the why until we start to incorporate student voice into that, right? Finally, whenever possible, we're going to interpret data with the people closest to the work. I can't stress how important this is, right? Because this data all gets put together and then it gets sent to high level leadership that are making these decisions without the input from the boots on the ground folks, our frontline folks. There are plenty of times where I've been sitting in meetings and we're talking about some data point, trying to figure out what's going on. And that answer could be solved if I just asked like Katie, who works with those kids every day. And they'll say, oh, this is particularly this way on Wednesdays because of this unique thing, this idiosyncratic thing in our school.
Mm.
I wouldn't have known that unless I was talking to the people that are closest to the work, right? Because they see the context that the spreadsheet's never going to show you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get started by picking one current out of school time activity in your program that you might want to sustain, right? Something that has some sort of benefit or impact to your youth. It could be something like academic support or enrichment. Could be some youth leadership stuff, mentorship, family engagement, sports, arts, STEM, anything else, right? Whatever that activity is, go ahead and put it in the chat for me because I want to make sure that we have it there documented so that we use it as an anchor for the rest of our session. You want to choose something that's real enough that you can think about the evidence that's behind it, but not so complicated that you can't work with it during the session, right? Like, don't pick the thing that has 8 million knots in it that we need to undo, right? Like, pick something that is a little less complicated than that because we're going to use that activity several times today. A mobile museum program, absolutely love it. I love a mobile museum. I love a mobile library. Yes, absolutely STEM, right? What is a way that we can do and improve our STEM program that has this impact and keep it going?
I love the mentoring or tutoring, because I think that's so important, right? To have those opportunities for our youth to have those responsibilities, right? Like that mentoring, that ownership, being able to build up some of those skills for themselves and leadership skills and qualities. I think that's really important
Yeah.
Homework help? Yes.
Absolutely. And like with homework help and the mentoring stuff, those are things, especially in community schools where we're like, K to 8, something like that. That's a really powerful thing to have our seventh and eighth graders work as these like, mentors that our, K to 3s can really look up to and admire.
Sports, dinners for adolescents at community college, BGC
Oh yeah,
program.
West Girls Club, yeah, absolutely.
Opportunities for youth to ride outside in nature and in community. I love that. Like, absolutely. Getting like youth to engage in writing and reading, think is so important right now. And I think that's a great way to like, let's change up the scenery because just that little change and change in environment can really bring, some youth out of their shell and like let their creativity shine. So
Yeah,
I think that's beautiful.
it's amazing how inspiring it can be for folks, right? Ooh, a student podcast. All right. But they share their experiences, perspectives, and ideas. Student leadership initiative that develops communication, collaboration, facilitation, and civic engagement while creating opportunities for educators and the community to learn directly from students. Right. So, like almost like a huge project-based learning initiative, right? Something that not only do we have to look at how to sustain, but we have to look at what community partners we can bring in to help support that work, which is stuff that we've dealt with earlier in earlier sessions. But today's session is really going to help you put together data to make a pitch to those community partners to say, hey, look, I need to bring you in to help support this aspect of this programming that we want to put together.
Mhm.
So let's go ahead and take a look at what data can really help us decide. So data really helps leaders make 3 practical decisions, right? First, what's worth sustaining? Is this a thing that is worth keeping in our program? And that's one of those things where we measure impact of the program against whatever costs might be there. And we'll dive into that a little deeper in just a second. But then once we've decided whether we want to sustain the program, we have to figure out what might need improvement, right? Is there something in the program with this activity that needs to be maybe zhuzhed up? Maybe we need to increase the rigor of it, something to that effect. Or maybe with our third question, we need to redesign it, right? If we decided that we don't want to stop it, that we want to keep it going and maintain it, maybe it's something that we need to redesign because of a change in our funding streams, a change in the human resources that we have when it comes to our staffing, things of that nature that we have to take into account, right? These questions matter because sustainability is not the same thing as keeping everything in place, right? When I talk to a lot of people about sustainability, and I ask them, okay, well, what do you want to keep going? Oh, I want to keep the whole program going. Yes, I know. And I would love you to keep the whole program going too, right? But when our resources shrink, we need to get creative, we need to pivot, and we need to adapt, right? In real programs, time, money, staff energy, transportation, space, partner capacity, so many things are limited, right?
Mhm.
And data is the thing that's going to help us make choices with more confidence and less guesswork about what to keep because we can't keep everything. That being said, the goal is not more data. The goal is not to have mountains and mountains of data you have to parse through. The goal is finding the right amount of data so that you can make better decisions. So this is a simplified version of the evidence checklist that's in our sustainability toolkit that we shared with you. The toolkit goes into much more detail, but for the purpose of this session, we're going to organize our evidence into the 6 buckets you see here on screen, right? So our community context tells us about the needs and the access for the community. Figuring that out it might mean those, just doorstep talks with parents when they come to pick up kids. It might mean a larger family survey that you roll out. It might mean talking to the social worker school partner that you have to figure out what context your youth are living in, to figure out where we need to support them and how those supports can actually impact them. And then we can then align that with our school priorities, right? Because once we start aligning what we're doing with what is going on in school, then that doubles the investment at least that we get from our school day professionals, right? So it might be normally you're walking next to the principal telling them about the cool things you do, and they're, checking things off, they're doing a bunch of other things. All of a sudden you start hitting them with data points about how reading and writing scores are going
Mhm.
up and math scores are going up. All of a sudden that same principal stops in the hallway and
Mhm.
turns to talk to you, right? And now all of a sudden that deepened that engagement, because I'm not just saying big pie in the sky things about how like I'm impacting your youth. I am giving you hard data. Things like student participation and progress, right? Those are the things that are really impactful for or for our school partners. The thing that doesn't get honored as much because of curriculum and a number of other constraints in the school day is that student voice. But that's something that's crucial for out of school time, because a lot of times our youth, especially our older youth, they have choices, right? So they vote with their feet. So if we're not honoring their student voice, then we well, one, we don't know how youth are experiencing the activity, but two, we aren't developing activities in a way that is impactful and speaks to our youth's lived experience, right? That family voice sounds like the same thing, but it's different, right? Because students need things specifically for them and their development. Families can need so many other wraparound services. Like I think about family engagement nights that I did around financial literacy, right?
Mhm.
That are basically just for the parents. But I mean, they're in theory also for my eighth graders, right? But it's for a bunch of parents that don't know how to balance a checkbook, don't know how to get a savings account, things like that, right? We
Mhm.
need to figure out what our families need and how we can address that. And then that program feasibility is the wraparound piece.
Mhm.
Do we have the staff? Do we have the time? Do we have the money to
Mhm.
do these things, right? And then
Yeah.
not just do them, but sustain them. Because one and done, hit it and quit it is not working. We need to stay and play, right?
Mhm.
So this checklist isn't meant to be like a whole bunch of new paperwork for you. It's just meant to, give you something that you can organize what you already know and identify what the next useful source of evidence is.
I saw some things coming in the chat. Real quick, Christina, thank you for sharing. You want to sustain the opportunity for OST to support this work through our support, and you were talking about the writing opportunities for youth, and then you shared an improvement because a funder recently responded to your proposal by saying this will only impact those who are already interested in writing. And that is, unfortunate to hear. And maybe like a tweak of that could be of like, well, maybe there might be youth that don't know that they're interested in writing if they're not given that opportunity and they're not given the chance to explore, because maybe they just haven't had that, like they're not interested in it right now, but that doesn't mean they might not be interested in it if they're given the tools to really explore what they like and what they don't like.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, I'm sort of getting ahead of myself, but that's one of those things where you look at that as a data point where, oh, okay, it's just our youth that are really engaged in writing, that are engaging with this activity a lot. Well, to me, that's saying that I'm not honoring student voice enough, right?
Hmm.
Because it's speaking to the people that writing's already speaking to. I need to involve student voice so
Hmm.
that other people want to engage with this activity in the same
Right.
way, right?
Right. And then, Johanna, thank you. Yes, family voice is very big.
Huge,
Getting
huge.
them pulled in, getting them on their side, on your side, and like listening to what they're saying, that's, you got to have that.
Once they start feeling heard, it's a huge difference. It's a
Mhm.
sea change in your program,
Yes.
right? So each one of these sources of evidence answers a different question, right? That's why we're gathering these disparate data points, right? Our community context helps us understand exactly why an activity is needed for our space. There are a million great activities out there. Not all of them are going to really speak to the individual needs of your community, right?
Hmm.
The school priorities help us see what the school day needs and then how the activities that we put together can support those needs. You can create like a really awesome organic process with that, where you're previewing the stuff that is coming up in the next units in school so that those students have that vocabulary
Yeah.
preloaded for them, things like that, right? And then our student data helps us understand who's participating, what changes, when it changes, things like that, right? And we spoke to our student and family voice quite a bit already, but it helps us understand that experience, what it feels like for the people that we are serving. Um, and then really, the goal is not to make every source perfect, right? The goal is to avoid making sustainability decisions just from one single angle. Like general feasibility. Oh, well, that doesn't seem like it's possible. Well, how do we know if it's possible, right? If we're just using the feasibility data, how do we really know unless we've supported it with these other points of data, right?
Hmm.
Stronger decisions connect things like need, experience, outcomes, and bring them all into account when it comes to considering feasibility. So let's return to the activity that you picked that we're going to be working through, right? We're going to start a poll. And then for each one of these evidence areas, I'd like you to decide whether you have strong evidence, whether you have some evidence, or whether the evidence is missing for this area, right? So our areas are community, school, student voice, family voice, and feasibility. Go ahead and respond to the poll. Please be honest, right? Because missing evidence doesn't mean that the activity is weak. It means that we need to know what information could make it stronger, right? It's the kind of thing that you end up with when you're a program director and you ask a site coordinator for something like, no, I don't, or they make something up because they don't want to be honest about the fact that they don't have it, right? It's okay to not have it. It's okay to not have enough of it, as long as we have a plan to move forward, right? So I'm seeing we've got a good bit of community data. It looks like schools are a bit of an issue, which, I mean, this is something that we run into with out of school time a lot, right? Our school day partners are very busy just like we are. And so it's very difficult to have them switch stream in the 30 minutes they have of planning at the end of the day or whatever in order to get them
Hmm.
to engage with what you're doing. Until you start incorporating things like data and then talking about how you can tie it into what's going on in their classroom, right? Talking about how you can support each other instead of just how they can support you. That's the idea. All right, let's see what we have here. We have our student what see, okay. Now when it comes to our student information, this is our easiest source, right? This is our attendance data. This is like, the evidence that we have when we finished activities. So this is where we're most likely to have data. I want you to think about what data you have there, and then if you don't have data in that area, there are a lot of different pieces of evidence that you can gather instead of just trying to like add some new thing just for the express purpose of collecting data. And we'll talk about that in a second. So we have student voice, right? I mean, student voice is also fun. It's easy to collect and it's fun to collect because
Yeah.
the kids are talking to you all the time, right? When it comes to family voice, that's very
That's a little
different,
bit
right?
different.
Parents aren't as often likely to open up and let you know what they need until you've built that strong developmental relationship for them. And then feasibility, right? It's hard to really look at our feasibility data until we have all of this other data together because then until then we're dealing with a lot of unknowns, right? And we can't solve an unknown with other unknowns. We need knowns to solve an unknown.
Mhm. All right, I'm gonna close that poll in a second. Then I'm gonna share the results so everybody can see what we're looking at.
Yeah, here we go. Look at this. So our final results here, right? Looks like the thing that we're looking for most is stuff from our schools and our families.
Hmm.
And again, these are the people where we have to, and it sounds bad, but we have to convince them of our worth, right?
Hmm.
Before they're willing to really engage with us. And the way that we do that is by telling a really strong data story.
Hmm.
So we'll talk about just how we can get into telling that kind of story um, in just a second, right? But let's talk about before we talk about building a data story, let's talk about what we do when there is a distinct lack of evidence, when we are missing a piece, as it were. If anybody remembers that old Shel Silverstein story, the missing piece, good stuff. Definitely made me like poetry a lot more when I was a little kid. So, when our evidence is missing, the short answer is don't collect everything, right? Don't just like, oh, let me take all of this here and I'll try to figure it out. No, 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 no. The answer is to choose the next useful source for the data realm that you're trying to, get a point for. So, like, it might be a 3-question exit ticket if we need more student data. It might be a quick family text survey. Just getting some family voice, right? even if you don't want to make it a quick family text survey, I really encourage you to lean in to those just like random conversations that you have with a parent in the 5 minutes that Sally is putting on her shoes, right? And it's like she's saying goodbye to her friends. Those add up really
Yeah.
quickly. And that kind of like that investment then leads to that mom opening up to you. And then maybe that mom has a need. Maybe that mom can be a partner for our program, right? There are so many different ways in which that can help once we get that buy-in. Maybe it's a short partner check-in, right? Especially when a partnership has been going on for a long time or when it's very new. We need to make sure that everything is functioning as is intended. And that means, checking back on whatever your memorandum of understanding is or whatever,
Yeah.
something like that, right? Maybe it's just a review of your attendance and dosage, right? Maybe we need to figure out who is attending, when they're attending, and how frequently that is happening to see if we can spot trends to just figure out why there's a drop off here in the middle of the week or what have you. Or maybe it's just a rough estimate of cost and staff time, right? I mean, when we figure out like we have to pay the staff, we all might love being there, but we still have to pay them,
Hmm.
and we have to pay more of them the more programming that we want to implement, right? So, can we do that? The real test for evidence is pretty simple. Um, will this evidence improve the next decision that I'm making about my programming? If the answer is yes, it's worth gathering, right? If the answer is no, sure, it might be interesting, but it's not something that's necessary right now, right? And we
Hmm.
can't keep it all in our brains.
Right. Well, let's take a look as we kind of like talked about like those data points, what's important, what we want to take with us. Let's move away from gathering evidence and those data points to actually analyzing it, right? So, this is the sustainability data analysis step from our toolkit, again, that you can find. We are not asking for new data points here. We are taking the evidence you already identified and using it to make clearer decisions about one activity. Every activity can be examined through two questions. So the first is, what impact does the activity appear to have? Right? So what impact does this activity appear to have? And then secondly, what does it cost to deliver this activity well? So reflecting on, and again, costs can be monetarily. They can be like time as a cost.
Yeah,
Time is
that's a
precious.
real cost.
Do you have staff? Staff is that's another cost.
You have space.
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 So it's not just when we think cost, right? It's not just monetary. It's not just the money aspect. It's all those other pieces too, because they come into play there, right? So when we put those two questions side by side, we can move from a vague statement like, this is a good activity, yo boy,
Hey, attaboy.
to a more useful decision to sustain it, to really scale it, to protect it with a plan in order to build upon it, to plan for it, to improve it, redesign it, or stop doing it in its current form. So, right, you can take all of those and re-zhuzh it up, so to
Right.
speak, right? So decision the goal is again to sustain, scale, protect, improve, redesign, or stop. Maybe it's just not working. And sometimes that is completely fine, right?
Yeah, that's okay.
It's okay to stop. It's like, well, this didn't work exactly like I wanted it to. Go back to the drawing board.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that.
Don't beat your head against the wall just trying to make it work, right?
Right. When we say, and we just talked about this, right? What counts, right? When we say expense, it's not just about the dollars. Dollars matter. Like it's very important, right? But a low dollar activity, it can still be expensive in other ways. It requires a large amount of staff time. Do you have the space? Do you have administration or partner coordination on your side for that? So, for an example, an activity may look inexpensive because the supplies are donated. Check, you don't have to worry about that. But if staff spend hours coordinating schedules, solving transportation problems, following up with families, that activity has a real cost to it. This matters because sustainability depends on the full effort required to deliver an activity well, right? If you are pushing, staff to do all of these things, and maybe they're running out of time, like that can create a lot of burnout. And then if you don't have, the passion or the engagement from your staff to do the activity, that's a loss, right? Like you're losing on that, and that's not going to be sustainable
No.
over time. Like they're gonna burn out, right? So it really matters again because sustainability depends on the full effort of everyone required to deliver that activity in a well thought out way. We want to avoid keeping an activity just because it feels familiar, or it's less expensive, or it appears maybe like less expensive
But
to
we've
do.
always done that. But that one's so cheap, it's fine. Yeah, but what impact does it have?
Yeah. Oh, well, I've always done that.
Hmm.
A quick story. When I was in the classroom, especially as a first year coming in,
Yeah.
I was handed, here's a bunch of things. Here's a bunch of things for you to do. But then I was like, well, I guess I'll do this. But then I was like, I don't really like doing
Yeah,
this.
none of this really makes sense for me.
Yeah, so just because it's been done, it feels familiar. Other people are familiar with it. Doesn't necessarily mean the impact is there, right? So you might have to reevaluate. And we also want to avoid cutting something too quickly if the true cost can be an offset through partners, through scheduling changes, or any type of in-kind support, right? So a lot of this to say, think about what counts. Think about all of the stuff that goes into an activity, especially if we're looking back at the activities you guys identified, right? What goes into it? Not just the money aspect, but all of those other moving pieces for it. The continuum that you kind of see some stuff right here, impact expense continuum. This continuum gives us 4 decision areas that you see right here. So there's high impact and low expense activities. These are strong candidates for sustaining or scaling. These are activities where the evidence is strong and the cost is manageable. Then you have high impact and high expense activities. These may still be worth protecting, but they might need a little bit of a plan. The plan might include dedicated funding, a partner contribution, or even an efficiency strategy, or even in-kind support to help out with that. Then we have low impact and low expense activities, which is down there on the bottom left corner, I believe. Those activities should not continue unchanged just because they're easy to keep, right? What we just talked about, right? They're easy to keep around, right? You need to look at those.
Yeah, that half
um,
hour of free playtime on the playground, yeah, that might be cheap, but it has very low impact, right?
right.
How can we level it up?
They may need a short improvement plan, right? A success threshold, a review date, right? Some of these things might need to be looked back at. Low impact and high expense activities are the clearest candidates for a redesign, for replacement, or even, you know, uh, just taking a look at it and like, do I need to continue? Do I need to redo this? Or do I need to stop this? Unless there is a strong equity or strategic reason that you need to keep them and keep going with them. The continuum does not make the decision for us, right? This is just a guide, but it does give us a good overview, a disciplined way to have these discussions in the decision making process. The toolkit uses this same high impact, high cost structure to help programs decide what to sustain, what to protect, what to improve, or what to sunset.
Yeah. This is really important, particularly because like you get into those discussions without using a decision tree like this to be like, well, I like that program or kids like it. Oh, okay, but I need data. Like we need to figure out,
Mhm.
is this high impact? Like they might like it, but what do we know about it? How do we do
Mhm.
that? How can we support those things? It grounds a discussion about what we're actually going to do with an activity.
Right. It gives you a guide. So use this continuum to guide your decision making, not replacing your judgment. Before we place activities on the continuum, though, we need an equity and access check. So this outline, the outline is clear that decisions should not be based on that cost alone, right? Some activities serve smaller groups of students or even families, but they may remove a major access barrier or provide high need support. That does not mean that the cost disappears, right? So it means we need to document why the investment matters, ask who benefits the most from this activity, what barrier it removes, who would lose access if this changed, and whether you could clearly explain the equity and the rationale to a stakeholder, right? This step really helps to prevent sustainability decisions from becoming only about efficiency, right? How many times have we heard that? Like efficient, like all of that, like, oh, it's only about this one thing, but there's other things that come into play, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, we might try to be making decisions on efficiency, but then the students who have the most need are getting, left by the wayside
Right.
because the supports that we need for them are high impact, but they're also, fairly high expense because we need to maybe bring in tutors or something like that,
Mm-hmm.
right? And if we're just looking at money, then we are not providing that equitable service for all the youth that need those things, right?
So the goal is responsible decision making that considers the evidence, it considers the expense, access, and what is the overall mission? What is the mission we're going for? So let's dive into another quick activity using what we've just talked about. So now that you're going to reflect back on your activity that you picked at the beginning, right? Based on what you know today, does it look like that activity is high impact and low expense, high impact and high expense, low impact and low expense, or is it low impact and high expense? So you can see those on the screen right there. Or if you do not have enough evidence yet, choose the last option, like not enough evidence. The goal is not to force certainty. The goal is to make your current thinking visible. Share in the chat with us right there, looking back on your activity and reflecting on that. Where does it fall in that list? All right. So, and if you would like to put what your activity was again in there, you can. I think, let's see. Your mobile museum. Okay, I was trying to go back to see what it said. Right. So,
Oh, there we go. Thanks.
perfect. Thank you, Robert. So your mobile museum, high impact, high expense. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, that's fair. We got to bring them in, right? And we've got to pay this museum to come in and do their things. But like, what is going on there is very impactful, right?
Right.
So, I mean, when we look at something like that, is there a way that we can bring in another community partner to help subsidize that, right? Like, once we have the data to show how impactful this is for our youth, can we go to, I mean, and there are a number of things, but just like off the top of my head, I would go to like some local corporation that has a charitable giving arm and say, look, here's the impact that we're making for youth in this town, in our town. So would you be interested in helping to sponsor the mobile museum come through, right? We can do things like that. But the way that we do that is by showing the impact by having like actual concrete data, right?
Jennifer shared for mentoring and tutoring, high impact, high expense. Yeah, because I mean, you have that impact, right? Like you got the results, the positive, like they're learning, they're getting that extra support that they need. But it could also be high expense because let's say you're paying outside tutors or you're paying a staff extra because they're taking on more hours, they're taking on more time to, do the mentoring and do the tutoring. So
Yeah, maybe those teachers are coming in from the school day to also help
Mhm.
with your tutoring, right? But maybe we get more engagement from those teachers once we start having more buy-in from them, right? Once we start proving how the things that we're doing here in out of school time are also making their jobs easier
Mhm.
at school, right? And then once we have more buy-in, we have more teachers that are looking to come in and we can look at what we're actually paying teachers once we have a larger supply,
Mhm.
right?
I was going back, see, we've got high impact, high expense. Shirley shared high impact, low expense. And I went back to look, and I think Shirley, you mentioned sports. All right, so
Yeah.
high impact, but it can be very cheap to, if you're doing just some small sports activities
It
and things like
absolutely can, yeah. And then so that's one of those things where like maybe we want to just look at revising it, right? Like how do we increase the rigor of those activities, right? Are the kids drawing up plays, right?
that.
Are they writing after game reports, right? Do we have sideline reporters? Do we have people doing commentary? There are so many things that we can do to like support our STEM and our English skills while still engaging with the sports that our youth voice, like our student voice, is telling us that is really impactful for our
Mhm.
program, right?
Surely like those ideas.
I'm glad.
I see another one. Rosemary shared need for dinners is high, but need more thinking on impact data on how to show benefit.
Yeah, right. Because I mean, and that feels like a societal thing, right?
Mhm.
Honestly, those are the times where having some actual testimonials from families is great. Having pictures where okay, we had this big family dinner night, right? And we gave all of these, we helped feed all these families, and then all of a sudden you show these people a picture of an auditorium full of people, and they're like,
Mhm.
oh, that many people actually
Yeah.
need this support.
Yeah.
Well, then maybe we need to come in and lend a hand for how to do that, right? It's harder to tell social stories like that, but it's not impossible, right? You just have to get a little more creative.
And I will say when you're gathering any of those data points, right? Like we might think, and I say this all the time, I am very much a qualitative data person because I think it gets left to the wayside a lot.
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of programs, and it's like here's the numbers people, right?
Yeah.
But taking a picture of a full room, that's evidence. Like having conversations with people that come in, like those families, like seeing if they would want to share an impact story.
Yeah.
That's evidence right there.
Maybe you
And
have a
that,
program social media, right?
right.
And maybe they share testimonials on a social media or whatever,
Yeah.
things like that. Yeah.
Those are very crucial when you're collecting and you're looking at your data points and your evidence. Those are very vital pieces of evidence too. So
Absolutely.
keep that in mind as well. So as we kind of like, you think about this, I just want like to leave you with some questions to kind of like simmer with and to reflect on. So with all of this stuff and with all of these impacts, why is impact alone not enough to make a sustainable decision? Why is all of the other parts important as well? Why does expense include staff time? Why does it include the space, materials, administration, transportation, partner effort? Why is it not just dollars? What does not enough evidence yet? Because I think there was like part of that was like, oh, I need more evidence. I need
Yeah.
more like details
I
on the
saw a couple of
impact.
those responses. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what does not enough evidence yet tell us about the next step that we need to take in this? So think about where you placed yourself. Where did you place your activity today? Right? What evidence, cost estimate, or access consideration would make that placement more defensible?
Yeah.
So taking all of that and just think about that. And if you'd like to share it in the chat, you can. We would encourage that. Um, I was just reading on the chat, have an in-kind vendor who provides meals to 33 of our after-school sites, and testimonials really drives impact so much that other students want to join the after-school programs. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh no, those are just reflection questions, Jennifer.
Reflection
Yeah, don't
questions.
worry.
Don't
You're
worry.
not
Yeah.
getting graded.
Yeah.
Don't worry, Jennifer.
Yeah. I think the main one was the last one. And if you wanted to put it in the chat, you could, but I was like, wherever you placed yourself on that chart, what evidence, cost, access consideration would make that placement more defensible. So STEM kits were provided through a grant. Need to look at what costs to replenish materials. All right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good first step though. Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely.
Taking those first steps. And this is like why that reflection piece is so important. Like in that chart is so great because we can try to place ourselves there. evaluate and think about those other like moving parts, like the impact, the expense, all of the other like costs that go along with it, and what can we do to plan, move it around, reevaluate, and restructure.
Mhm.
So after placing the activity name, like which some of you have done, is like thinking about the next step, right? Likely where you're going to put like the next step, where it's going to go. So sustain means the evidence is strong enough to keep the activity, right? So wherever you put yourself, it's like strong enough. We don't need to do anything. We can keep sustaining that. Scale means the activity may be expanded, but only if quality can be protected, right? And what does that mean, right? So only expanding, right? Only growing if it's not going to take away from that impact, and that quality is not going to falter because you've expanded.
Right. Like we might have a really fun STEM robotics program, right? But we have one STEM robotics teacher. That
Yep.
works for maybe the 20 kids that he has.
But if you bring in 40 to 50 kids,
Yeah.
is that going to be too much for the one person to be able to give quality instruction to?
Yeah.
Right.
And then all of a sudden our impact suffers. And then all of a sudden, why are we doing this activity in general? Right.
Right. Protect means the activity matters, but it needs funding, staffing, or partnership plan. I think I saw several examples in there where I was like, yes, that matters.
Yeah.
Like we need that. But we just might need a little bit more funding with it. We might need more staffing or a little bit more structuring to it.
Some in-kind support, something like that.
Mhm.
Right.
Improve means the activity may be promising, but it needs a specific change or a success threshold. So there might just need to be a reevaluation of where can we go from here? The activity is good, but how can we make it better? How can we improve upon it? Right? And then a redesign or stop means the activity should not continue unchanged. It's like we did this, it's we're not seeing the results that we want to see. It's not one, it could be too costly, and two, it's like we're not using funding and cost efficiently, and the impact's low. So we need to like do some readjustment to that, right? So a defensible decision has evidence, cost, equity, and an owner for the next step. And so once you've gotten that, you think about those next steps. Is your activity in that sustain area? Is it on the scale, the protect, improve, or is it time to go back to the drawing board and redesign it all together?
That owner thing is huge too, because like if there's no owner, the thing doesn't get done, right? I mean, we all know how it works in teams. Unless you point to somebody and say, "Hey, Scarlett, can you do the family engagement survey or whatever?" If we just go, "Hey, we need a family engagement survey," then next week at our meeting, we're like,
Who did that?
Yeah, hey, so who did that? Oh, I thought you were gonna. Oh, well, I thought you were gonna. Yeah, thank you. Right.
There needs to be clear, right? The clear differentiation,
Yes,
who's
sir.
taking responsibility for things. Yep. Also, thank you everybody for sharing in the chat. I'm just going back and reading over some of those things.
Yeah.
Must be parents expect homework assistance, must be protected, sustained student attendance.
Absolutely, Johanna. Yeah.
Great data showing impact in many ways. Growth in all 44 counties in the state. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I think, Robert, you were talking about the museum, right?
Yeah.
You need to protect the program since grant funding runs out next summer and no local funders have expressed interest in funding full-time staff member who runs the program.
hmm
Mm.
Yeah. I mean, that's huge. And I mean, I guess not to take up too much time talking about these two things, but like when it comes to our homework time, like that's something that our family and our student voice is telling us and our student data that we
Mhm.
need. And being able to show the impact of that, something that can be really helpful, right? And then protecting it could mean, contracting with some community partners, bringing in some people from the local community teacher college, whatever, who need children facing time to come in and give you that hand, right? And then, I mean, when it comes to that museum, protecting that when the grant funding runs out, I think once you really get to like pull together a data story and you're
Mhm.
able to tell that to the people in your community, I think you're going to get a whole lot more buy-in.
Yes, absolutely. Uh, all of these are great. We love seeing all of the stuff come in. So thank you so much for sharing in the chat. We appreciate all of the stories and your experiences. So we want to look, we're kind of starting to go into our wrap up phase, but we do want to look at like naming the decision and how to do that clearly. So once a decision is made, the language that you use really matters, right? Stakeholders should not have to guess, right? We're not playing the guessing game of what the program is doing. We are sustaining this because we are improving this by, we are protecting this while we dot, 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 right? We are redesigning this because of X, Y, and Z. We are stopping this so we can dot dot dot, right? So these are some great like starter like sentence structures, right? To help guide you of wherever you fell on that scale. Like where are you scaling? Are you sustaining? Are you improving? Whatever it is, wherever you fell on that chart, right? This can help you clearly define and like tell the stakeholders why you're doing what you're doing, right? These sentence starters. They also can help because they should be direct and they can be direct without being harsh, right?
No, we're just not doing that anymore.
We're not doing that. We're stopping this because we didn't
Yeah.
like it, right? It gives you a little bit more structure. Clear decision language also helps to prevent sustainability from sounding vague, right? Because that can be really detrimental. Nobody wants to be vague, right? You want to be as clear, especially when it comes to stakeholders and funders, clear and concise as possible, because then you don't leave anything up to chance. You don't leave anything up to interpretation. You're being clear with your messaging, right? People are more likely to support a decision when they understand what is changing, what is staying, and why. And those are the clear points for you. A 1 minute sustainability story has 4 ingredients, right? So, first, you want to name the activity and the decision. Second, you want to use 2 evidence points. Third, you want to explain why it matters for youth. Why does it matter for families, the school, or the community? And fourth, you want to ask for a specific next step or next action. A strong message is clear, it is specific, it's evidence based, and it's action oriented. This is not a full report. It is the kind of message you can use in a meeting. You can use this kind of messaging in an email, a quick email to a partner or stakeholder. You can share this in a conversation or even funding decision that you have. But it gives you a clear breakdown to share your story. And that's what this is really all about, right? It's
Yeah.
like getting your story out there.
You want to be able to have something where somebody, on the street at the supermarket, oh, what does your program do? You don't want that, right? You want to have something very easy, boilerplate that you can start with.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I pressed the button and it doesn't want to move.
There,
Wait,
it moves 2 now.
It moved 2 now.
There we go.
There we go. There we
go.
go. So now we just want you to draft for one of our last activities. Draft your 1 minute sustainability story using this framework that we have right here. So using the same activity that you selected at the beginning, you're going to start with the decision, then add 2 evidence points, then explain why it matters. Finally, you're going to name the stakeholder and the specific action that you're asking for. Write it in plain language, enough to say it out loud. If it sounds like a report paragraph, you want to tighten it up, right? So you can use those right there at the top or on what you see on the screen, right? Use those sentence structures to really help you lay this out. And we would love for you to share in the chat for us. I'm going to check on the chat. Rosemary said, I think having individuals in the organization with executive function to make a move on these decisions on the individual activities is so important and underrated in sustainability discussion. Usually sustainability is approached from a partnership angle, but sometimes it's an individual able to listen to make decisions that makes the most difference.
Yeah, I mean, and to me, that feels like speaking from a very specific lived experience that I have shared, where you're part of a committee that is subject to paralysis by analysis, and you just need somebody that can take the leap, right, and do the thing. So it's one thing once we've discussed it as a community, and then we make that decision.
Mhm,
We don't want somebody that's just going to be a maverick and making those decisions on their own. But yeah, absolutely.
mhm.
Absolutely.
So, would anyone like to share their little impact story?
I know we might not have our data quite handy. So,
If anybody would like to share, it's great. High impact, high expense move on. Thank you. Oh, perfect. Okay. Suzanne, I'll be sharing that again in just a second. We are about to wrap up and I'll be putting that in the chat for you. Well, if you want to take a snapshot of this, and I do believe we have like some of this draft language in the toolkit
yeah, we do.
for you to draft this on your own, it's great. So use these kind of examples, use these drafting templates that we have in the toolkit to really take a moment to reflect. Use this as a time to where did you place yourself? Where is your activity? And how can you use this, those sentence starters to really draft your story? That way you can effectively, efficiently put it out there and share your story with who needs to hear
Yeah. And I mean, it feels intimidating, but it doesn't have to, right? Like if we're just using mentoring, for example, say we are deciding to expand our mentoring program because we have improved reading and math scores from the students that attend that program, and we have higher student attendance that, for students that are attending. And also there are lower incidents of behavior amongst the students who attend that kind of thing, right? And then we're doing it, that's why we're doing it, and then you just walk through the rest of that framing as you build your story.
it. And as you think about like your stories, here are some like questions you can reflect on. Like, is your story clear? Is it specific? Is it evidence-based? Is it action-oriented? Right? These strong messages are not necessarily longer. In fact, oftentimes, longer messages tend to lose their power and lose the message,
People
right?
tune out. It needs to be
Yeah,
30 seconds.
yeah, elevator pitch,
Yeah,
right?
elevator pitch, sure.
Use feedback, right? Like write your story, get feedback from colleagues, work with each other to sharpen the message, right? Not to make it longer, but to really tweak it and sharpen it up. The stakeholder should be able to understand the activity, the decision, the reason, and the ask without needing full explanation first, right? So here are a few, next steps for you to do, right? Gather one missing evidence source from the activity that you shared. Complete one impact plus an expense review, right? Revise one sustainability message that you have and share one data informed decision with your stakeholders. Put all of these together, all of the things that we've talked about today. You can really and this can probably be something that you can do within like the next 30 days, right? Choose one of these things that you can do in the next 30 days to keep this going, right? And thank you, folks, for sharing in the chat. I saw this come in. I appreciate that. Um, Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate you joining us today. Just to take a moment to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to come here. We are going to be posting the survey link in the chat. So please, please, please complete the survey that we're posting right there for you to access. We really do care about your feedback, so please keep that in mind. Our aim is to meet your needs, so keep that in mind as you fill that out. A certificate of attendance will be sent within a week to all those who attended live and completed the survey. We hope you'll join us for our next session on August 12th at 3 p.m., which is part 4 of Web of Sustainability series. I am also going back in the chat to share again the link for our toolkit so you can access that and see everything that we talked about today. So thank you everyone for joining us, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day.
Have a good one, everybody. Stay cool.